Hi, this is Dwayne Rock and Doc Anderson coming at you with a second video on YouTube. This time I'm going to do one about recent vinyl finds. A bit of history. I come from Lloydminster, which is right on the border of Saskatchewan and Alberta. Part of the city is in Saskatchewan and part is in Alberta. I live on the Alberta side. And Lloydminster has a population of about 31,000, and nothing happens here for music. We have very few bars left that are still around. One of them does DJs, and the rest I don't think do music at all. There is one pool hall with a small bar in it that a couple of local metal bands sometimes occasionally put their own shows on. And we have a theater, about a 450 to 500 seat theater. They do stuff occasionally, but most of the time it's tribute bands. I think the next thing coming to, it's called the Vic Juba Theater. I think it's the next thing coming there is an Australian Bee Gees tribute band. So that's about the extent of music we get in Lloyd. We do have one music instrument store in town that does carry some vinyl. They have a small selection of used vinyl, and they also carry some new vinyl, but they don't get stuff in on a regular basis, kind of hit and miss sort of deal. Every once in a while they get stuff in, but not that often. And I do put some of my own stuff in there that I pay them a commission to sell for me. And I've seen a lot before on other guys on YouTube doing videos and on Facebook about all the great finds they get at thrift stores. Well, we have two thrift type stores here in Lloyd, but you never get anything great in either of them. This is the kind of stuff you can expect to find at local thrift stores in Lloydminster. Stuff like this, lots of religious stuff, and stuff like this. Lots of old-timey stuff and polka music. And that's about the extent of it. I did find one time I did find a Jimi Hendrix Axis Bold as Life LP, but it was warped. Anyways, I'm gonna get right into it here with the recent vinyl finds. Once again, like I said, there's nothing here for records in Lloyd. There's only a handful of us vinyl collectors here. And so I have to either go to Saskatoon or Edmonton, which Lloyd is pretty much basically halfway between both of them. It's about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive to either one of them. I haven't been to Edmonton in a while. I used to go there every month for to get eye injections in my eye for what was called diabetic retinopathy, and I've been cured of that so far, and I'm good so far. So I haven't been there for quite a while, and I don't know if I'll be there for a while yet. But I did go to Saskatoon about a month ago and picked up some stuff. But I'm going to start off with something I got off of Amazon called the Suffragettes. This is their debut album, came out this year. It's called Roller Fink. They're an all-female surf instrumental band out of Toronto. And unfortunately, they're on an American label, so I was originally going to order it directly from the label. But when I put the record in my cart and went to check out, I believe the record was $30 US, and the postage was $30 US. Like, no, I didn't want to pay $60 US for a single LP. And I tried finding it in Canada, no way. So I did look up on Amazon a while back, and it was $45 on Amazon. And I was looking at it again a couple of weeks ago, and it was on sale for $33, so I grabbed it. Here's a picture of the band, and they do a couple covers. They do a cover of, again, these are all instrumental covers. They do a cover of Roxy Roller and Heart of Glass and Train Keep It Rolling. Next one is wasn't quite what I thought it would be. I was the band's called Shawadi Wadi. This is I believe they're an English band. They were formed in '73, and this is their fourth album from 1977, a German pressing. And I had thought that originally I'd thought they'd be something like Shana Na, like that 50s revival kind of thing, which they are to some extent, but they also do 60s and 70s pop music. So it's a lot more on the poppier side than the rock and roll side. And here's some pictures of the band, if you can see it. I believe there's 3 vocalists in the band, plus a full band backing them up. So lots of vocal harmonies, and I've seen some videos from them. They all wear the same kind of suits, but every band member has a different color suit. Here's something I picked up in Saskatoon, and this was a blind buy. I didn't know who Dr. Explosion was. And it looked like an interesting album, and it's on the Get Hip label, which is an awesome label. They put out some great stuff. The album's called The Subnormal Revolution, and they're a Spanish garage band. This album was released in 1998 on Get Hip, and it's actually a compilation of tracks from their first 2 albums, and this one's on red vinyl and comes with the Get Hip insert. Shows pictures of some of their other bands, and got a listing of bands that you can mail order on the back. And then I also in Saskatoon, I got these guys. I got 2 of their albums. Their first 2, they're called the Dukes of Hamburg, and they're San Francisco. Well, they were formed in San Francisco in the early '90s with musicians from the Mummies, the Astronauts, and the Phantom Surfers, and they do, as you can tell, they do a tribute to 60s beat music. And this one and the next one I'm going to show you were both released in 1998 on the Dionysus album label, or Dionysus label, out of LA. And this one's called Star Club Show 1. And this one is called Twist Time at the Star Club Hamburg. And both of these covers are actually sort of replicas of actual album covers that came out in the 60s. There was a series called The Star Club Show that came out in the 60s. And there was also, I think, a series of these, The Star Club, that also came out in the 60s that had the same kind of design, cover design. And the Star Club was actually a real club. It was in Hamburg. it opened in the 60s, and a lot of big name bands played there, but it closed on New Year's Eve in 1969, so these guys couldn't have played there because they didn't form till the 90s. So, and I don't know if it's just a tribute or they actually pretend that they're from Germany in the 60s. But this album, their first album, kind of reminds me a lot that garage kind of sound that the Downliner Sect had on their early stuff. Very similar to this, especially this album. Very similar to that. Very raw and rough and kind of lo-fi, but still a great album. This is one of their other albums that I've had for a while, and as you can see, it's called Germany's Newest Hitmakers, and this is a 2017 LP, and it's a complete ripoff of the Rolling Stones' first U.S. release that was called England's Newest Hitmakers, and there's also on the back of this, on the original album, there was a little blurb by Andrew Loog Oldham. Well, it's here too, but they just made a little changes and put the Duke's name in instead, but it's the exact same thing. Great band though, even though you look at any of the pictures you see of the band, especially on their album covers, they're wearing these really, really crappy looking 60s wigs. But recommended and it's very hard to find stuff by them, so if you come across it, grab it. Here's another odd band. This is they're from Melbourne, Australia. They're a 70s glam tribute band. They released this mini album in 1989, and I believe, as far as I can tell, this is their only release. It's covers of Sweet, Suzi Quatro, ABBA, and Gary Glitter. They're called the Melody Lords. And what's the name of the album again? Fistful of Glitter. And this is the, you can see here, the special autographed edition, but actually they're not real autographs. It's printed right on the record label. Here's another one I found in Saskatoon. This was a new album. This is a reissue. I think these reissues came out maybe last year. This is a band called Coven, who this is their third album, Blood on the Snow, and this one was released in 1974, and they their first album was entitled what was it again? Let me see here. Witchcraft Destroys Minds and Reaps Souls. It was released in 1969, and it was they were a band they were one of the first bands to embrace the occult imagery and satanic references, and they were originally formed in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the late 60s, and they were credited with being one of the first bands to do that with the occult imagery, and also to originate the sign of the horns. And they're apparently, according to legend, their first record deal was with Mercury Records, and they apparently signed the contract in their own blood. And other interesting facts about the first album was that their bass player was named Oz Osborne, and they had a track called Black Sabbath on that album, and this was before the Black Sabbath album, the first Black Sabbath album, was released. And they had a second LP, uh, a self-titled LP that came out in, I think that one was out in 1972, and it's just got a picture of them on the front cover, like laying down with their faces all whited out, with a black cat sitting in front of them. And I don't know if this album and the first album were reissued. This one for the first time since '74. I believe it was last year, and they were quite pricey. The only reason I ended up buying this one was because it was on sale for $10 off. I still want to get the first one, but I never. And it's fairly pricey. It's about $45. And the second one, but I don't think I've ever seen the second album. And this album, once again, their third one, Blood on the Snow. There's a picture of the back cover. They still sort of have that satanic imagery, but they sort of got away from that lyrically, and this album's more of a hard rock album, a little more poppier, and it came on Blood on the Snow vinyl, a red and white splatter. And I think they're still, to some extent, they're still doing stuff. I know they released a CD only in 2013 under the title Jinx. Jinx Dawson is their leader and front woman. So I think they're still around. Here's some other stuff that I got mail order. I believe I got this, and I'm not a big soundtrack guy. This is a soundtrack for Return of the Living Dead, and I only have like a handful of soundtracks like Easy Rider and Woodstock, and I think the Johnny Thunders documentary soundtrack, and American Graffiti, and that's pretty much it that I have for soundtracks. These were, I think, originally repressed because they were worth a lot of money, but I think, in 2016 they were reissued for records. I believe it was Record Store Day, and they came out in a variety of different colors. And even after, because they were in limited editions and they sold really well. Even after that, they were quite a lot of money to try and find them. But they finally reissued this one on blood red vinyl, blood red splatter vinyl in 2020. So, and they were still kind of pricey. They were about $35 to $37. I didn't have it and I wanted it. It's got some great punk bands on it. The Cramps, 45 Brave, TSOL, the Flesh Eaters, the Damned, and then some other bands, Rocky Erickson, and a band called SSQ, Tall Boys, and the Jet Blackberries. There's the back cover. But I like this album so much, and I'd seen this cover version before. I believe this is just a reproduction of the French version of it, but I really like this cover, so I had to buy it again. And this is a 2021 reissue out of Hong Kong, and it's the track listing on this is slightly different than the other one. It's got a band called the Straw Dogs instead of Jet Blackberries. And there's two versions of the song Party Time by 45 Brave on this album. And it's intercut with little bits of dialogue from the movie. And this one is on green vinyl. And it comes with a two-sided poster. This side and this side. And I'm not sure which country this poster's from. I believe it might be from Israel, but don't know for sure. Got this one. This is a Hollywood punk band that formed in 1978 by the ex-Berlin Bratz vocalist Rick Wilder. And I don't believe they recorded any LPs. They might have done some singles. But this album of their material was released in 2012, and is basically a compilation album, sort of, I guess. One side is recorded in 1983, and the other side was recorded in 2010 and 2011. And they were quite active in the LA punk scene. This album is called Scorched Earth Policies Then and Now, and it's a hard one to find. I only saw it the once, and I picked it up because I hadn't seen it before. Then to end us off, this is a Canadian power pop / pop artist that doesn't get much recognition, and I think he's really great and does some great work. Bob Segrini, who was originally one of the members of the Whackers, and this is his first solo album that came out in 1978 on the newly formed Canadian label, Bomb Records. And this is on pink marble vinyl. This one and this one, his second album, were albums I still had in my collection. This one's called Goodbye LA, and it was again on the Bomb Records, this time distributed by Epic, and it was released in 1979. But originally I did have all his albums, but I sold a couple, this being one of them. I recently got it back. This was his last album on Bomb Records in 1980. The label folded after that, and this record was actually recorded at the Thunder Sound Studios in Toronto and was simultaneously broadcast on Q107 in November of 1978. But the album, it's called On the Radio, wasn't released till 1980. So technically you could probably say this was his second album, but because it wasn't released till later, it became his third album. And finally, his last album, Vox Populi. This was, like I said, his final solo album. This time he was on Anthem Records, and this came out in 1980. And I don't believe he's done any recording since this one, although he's been quite active in the radio and television media, and I think he's done a lot of producing. But anyways, if you get a chance, if you ever come across any of his albums, great artist that just doesn't get the attention he deserves. So if you ever see any of those, pick them up. And they're not, his albums aren't that hard to find, and you should be able to get them fairly cheap. So this is Dwayne, Rock and Doc, saying goodbye till next time. I hope you enjoyed watching this. Hopefully it's not too long. I am going to try, because my first video didn't have them, but this time I'm going to try and put, like, down at the bottom there, the subscribe button and comments, if you can just drop a note on anything you want to say. I don't know how to do it, so I have to wait till my grandson can come over and maybe try and show me how to add those features, because like I said, they weren't on my first one. But hopefully on this one and any of the ones that I do in the future, it'll be there. So if you can subscribe, that'll be great. Talk to you later. Stay safe. We'll see you.